In today's tutorial, I'll demonstrate how to draw this cartoon-style ice cream cone using Inkscape. And at any time in this tutorial, you could look down at the bottom left-hand side of the video page to see which keystrokes and mouse clicks I'm using. So with that being said, let's go ahead and close out of this and get started. So the first thing we'll do when we open up Inkscape is make sure we have our view set to custom. We'll go to View, make sure you have Custom selected. Zoom, we're going to zoom in at 1:1. We'll open up our Align and Distribute menu. Make sure you have Last Selected chosen from that drop-down. And then we'll open up our Edit Objects, Colors, Gradients, and Stroke menu. So the first thing we're going to do is draw an ellipse. So come over to the Circles and Ellipses tool. Let's grab that tool. Let's come over here on the page and just draw an ellipse. Maybe about that size. That's pretty good. And then we'll go back to our arrow. Let's click on that. And then let's come over to the opacity slider and let's slide that in half. And then we'll right click this and go to duplicate, and we'll turn that red, and then hold Control and Shift on the keyboard and click and drag and scale this in right about there, about that much. And then we'll right click this and go to duplicate, and we'll turn that blue, and then we're going to hold Control while grabbing this top left arrow, and we'll just click and drag this down about this much. And then while still holding Control, we'll grab this this arrow on the bottom right over here. We'll scale that up as well. I'm actually going to scale this one up a little more. You want to get it to be about that size in that position. What we're paying attention to here is the space, the red space right here that's going to be left over, that's excluded from this blue area right here. That's where we're paying attention. You want it to look sort of like that. And once you get it positioned to right about there, hold Shift in the keyboard and click on that that red oval so you have them both selected. And let's go to Path and Difference. So the next thing we'll do is we'll click on this black oval. We'll right click it and go to Duplicate. We'll turn that red. And then we'll right click this and go to Duplicate. We'll turn that blue and hold Control on the keyboard and just click and drag this off to the right. Maybe about that much. And then we'll hold Control and grab this top corner right here and drag that up about that much right there. And then while holding Shift on the keyboard, click on that red oval and let's go to Path Difference. So once we get there, we'll take this oval right here. We'll click the black oval, right click it, go to Duplicate. Let's turn that red as well. Let's hold Control and Shift and let's scale this thing pretty small, maybe about that size. And then we'll click it a second time to get the rotation handles and hold Control and scale this thing around a couple of times like that. And we'll just put this in the corner right here, just like that. And then let's click on this black oval and let's go to Path and let's choose Linked Offset. And we're going to grab this node up top and we're going to scale this out to about right about there. We'll scale it out about that much. And then we'll go to Path, Object to Path, so that turns into a path. Now let's click on, let's go back to our arrow and let's click on this original black oval here in the center, and let's bring the opacity on that all the way up, and let's go down to our color picker and choose shade of pink or whatever color you'd like your ice cream to be. And then we'll click on this red oval here and then hold Shift and click on this red crescent right there. Let's bring the opacity on that all the way up, and let's turn that white. We'll come back down to our color picker, scroll back over to white, we'll make that white, and then click on this red piece here in the bottom right. Let's bring the opacity on that all the way up. And let's press F7 on the keyboard to get the dropper, and let's click on this pink area right here to make that the same shade. And then we could press F1 to get back to the arrow tool. And once you've made it that same shade, we're going to come over here to the Fill tab, and under the HSL tab, I'm going to go down to the L column, and I'm going to slide this to the left a little bit to make this darker. Make that about that shade right there, maybe that much. And then we'll click on this black oval in the background. Let's bring the opacity on that all the way up. We'll press F7 on the keyboard to get the dropper, and let's click on this darker section right here to make that the same shade. But we're going to make that even darker than that. So we're going to make that maybe that dark right there. And then we can go back to our arrow by clicking the arrow or just pressing F1 on the keyboard. So once we've gotten here, we're going to click and drag over this entire thing and group it together with this button right here, Group Selected Objects. And then we'll right click it and go to Duplicate, hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this up to about here. And then hold Control on the keyboard and grab this top arrow and scale it down about that much. And then we can lower that one step. And click this button right here, lower selection one step. Go ahead and click that. And then we'll right click this and duplicate it again. Hold Control, click and drag it up to about here. And then lower that one step as well. And then we'll hold Control on the keyboard and we'll click and drag this top arrow to scale that down a little bit. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. So it's about that size. Now the next thing we're going to do is draw a square. So click on the squares, the rectangles and squares tool, and hold Control and Shift in the keyboard to draw a perfect square like that. Yeah, like this right here. And once you've done that, let's go to the arrow tool, and let's click this a second time to get the rotation handles. Hold Control on the keyboard and grab one of the corner handles and rotate it around so that the corners of the square are pointing vertically like that. And then we'll go over to the Edit Paths by Nodes tool, and then we'll go to Path, Object to Path, and we'll click and drag over these bottom nodes right here. We want to select all of these nodes except for the top one, and we do that by clicking and dragging over these bottom three right here. And we're going to make them rounded by clicking this button up here, Make Selected Nodes Auto Smooth. Go ahead and click that. And then we can press Shift and click on this bottom node to deselect it. We just want these two selected at this point. And hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this down. Drag these down to about there. And then we'll go back to our arrow tool, click on that. Let's bring this in, scale that in a little bit. And let's make this blue and bring the opacity down so we can see what we're doing. And we're going to put this over here on top. I'm going to press down on the mouse wheel and move the mouse to pan the page up a little bit. You could do that by using these arrows over here on the side of the page. I like to use the mouse wheel button. So I'm going to hold Control and scale this down about this much. We don't want that to be that big. And I'm going to lower that beneath. Lower selection one step, lower that beneath there. I'm actually going to bring this down a little bit and bring that up. And then we're going to go, once we get to about here, we're going to go to the Edit Paths by Nodes tool and click on that. And let's grab this edge and let's bring that in a little bit. And click on this node to get that handle. I'm going to take that handle and bring that down a little bit just to give this a little bit of a dip. I'm going to take this handle right here and bring that up. Maybe about that much. Do the same thing with this one down here so that it looks like the tip of an ice cream cone, sort of like that. And for this side, I'll maybe bring that up a little bit as well. That's pretty good how it is. Once we get there, we can go back to our arrow. We can right click this, go to duplicate, and I'm going to turn that green, and I'm going to inset this a few times. And we do that by going to Path, Inset, or what I like to do is hold Control on the keyboard and press 0. So I'm going to do that a couple of times. I'm going to hold Control and press 0. There's once. Oh wait, no, wrong one. I'm sorry. Control and 9. That's actually outset. So with that selected, Control and 9. Once, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I'm going to right click this and go to duplicate. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to make that red. And I'm going to click this a second time to get the rotation handles. And I'm going to come up here and turn Snap to Cusp Nodes on. And with that turned on, I'm going to take this this little crosshair in the center here and snap it to the tip, the very tip of that graphic up there. And then once you do that, I'm going to take this handle right here and I'm just going to rotate this a little bit like that. Maybe about that much. And then hold Shift in the keyboard and click on the green graphic beneath it and go to Path, Difference. And then I'm going to lower that one step, just like that. Now the next thing we'll do is we'll click on this blue piece up here. Let's right click that and go to duplicate. Let's turn that green and let's click it a second time to get our rotation handles. And I'm going to take that crosshair up top and I'm going to snap this to the tip of this graphic right here. And then we could turn Snap to Cusp Nodes off. We should be done with that for now. And then I'm going to right click and go to duplicate. And I'm going to turn that red. And I'm going to grab this little corner right here. I'm going to scale this around to about here. maybe about that much. And then I'm going to hold Shift in the keyboard and click on the piece beneath it and go to Path, Difference. All right, now once we've done that, I'm going to click on this blue graphic in the background here that we originally created, and I'm going to go to Path, Linked Offset, and I'm going to grab this node up here and scale this out, maybe about that much. And once you get there, let's convert that to a path, object to path, and let's bring the opacity on that all the way up. And let's press F7 to get to our dropper tool and click on this very dark pink here that's on the edge to make it that shade. We'll go back to our arrow. Let's click on this blue segment, bring the opacity on that all the way up. Press F7 to get back to our dropper tool and click on this portion of the pink right here to make it that shade. Then we'll go back to our arrow. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to click this green piece right here. I'm going to bring the opacity on that all the way up. I'm going to turn that white, and then I'll click on this green object right here, bring the opacity on that all the way up, and I'm going to lower that one step to put that beneath that oval right there, and then press F7 on the keyboard to get the dropper tool and make that the same shade that this dark pink is here on the side, just like that. So once we've done that, we can go to our arrow. I'm going to pan down on the page a little bit. We're going to create the cone now. I'm pressing down on the mouse wheel to pan down. And we're going to create the cone using the stars and polygons tool. So let's click on that. And up here, you want to have the regular polygon button selected. We want 3 corners. We want rounded to be 0.2 and randomized to be 0. So once you have that set, hold Control and Shift in the keyboard and click and drag to create our little rounded triangle. And make sure you have it so that the point of the triangle is facing down and the top is the flat side of the triangle is facing up like that. And once we get there, I'm going to click on the arrow, and I'm going to make that this shade of yellow down here, the FFCC00. If you want the hex code, it should be that one right there. And I'm going to put this right here on the cone, right about here. And I'm going to grab this bottom arrow and just make this a little taller by about that much. That's pretty good. And then we'll convert that into a path. We'll go to Path, Object to Path. And then I'm going to right-click this and go to Duplicate. Let's turn that green and bring the opacity on that down. And then I'll right-click this again and go to Duplicate and turn that red. And then I'll click on this a second time to get our rotation handles. And I'm going to take this crosshair right here. I'm going to hold Control on the keyboard before I click it. And then while I'm holding Control, I'm going to click and drag this crosshair down to the bottom. Right down to the bottom like that. And I'm going to take this top corner, this little rotation handle right here. I'm going to rotate this around to about here. And then click it again to get our scaling handles. And I'm going to hold Control and grab this arrow and scale this up to about there. And then hold Shift in the keyboard and click on that green object beneath it. Let's go to Path, Difference. And I'm going to bring the opacity on this all the way up. I'm going to press F7 to get the dropper tool and make this the same shade of yellow. And once I do that, I'm going to come up here to the HSL tab. I'm going to slide this H column over to the left a little bit. I'm going to make this orange, slightly more orange than what it already is, kind of like that. And then we can go back to our arrow. And let's click on this original yellow piece right here. Let's right-click that and go to Duplicate. We'll turn that green, bring the opacity on that down. And we're going to inset this a few times by pressing Control and 9. So I'm going to press Control and 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe one more, 8. So I did that 8 times to make that about that much smaller. You want that much padding between the green and the yellow space right there. So once I've done that, I'll right-click that and go to Duplicate and turn that blue. And then hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this down about this much. And then I'll hold Control and bring this arrow up about here. Maybe about that much. And once I get there, I'll hold Shift in the keyboard and click on the green object beneath it. And go to Path, Difference. And then we can bring the opacity on this all the way up. And make that white. And then we're going to take this yellow object, we're going to duplicate this again. We'll right click it and go to duplicate. We'll turn that green, bring the opacity down in half. Right click this, duplicate, make that blue, and hold control and click and drag this one down to about here. And then I'm going to hold control and grab this bottom arrow and scale this out to about, maybe about there. And then hold shift and click on the green object beneath it and go to path, difference. And then I'm going to hold control and bring this down about this much. And then I'm going to hold control again and grab this bottom left arrow and scale this in a little bit, maybe about that much. Right click, duplicate, hold control, click and drag it down to about here. Hold control again, scale this one, make it a little bit smaller. We'll right click it, duplicate, bring this down to about there. Hold control and make this one a little smaller. And do the same thing, right click, duplicate, one more time. Hold control, click and drag this down to here. And while still holding control, click and drag and make this a little smaller as well. Now I'm going to take these and put them inside of the cone here. You don't want them sticking out. And once you get to about there, we can hold shift and click on each one of those green little stripes. Bring the opacity on them all the way up. We could actually unify them together. We'll go to path, union, and then press F7 on the keyboard to get the dropper tool and click on this orange portion right there. Go ahead and click that. And that should make that the same shade. And then we can go back to our arrow and click on that. And what we're going to do next is we're going to click on this yellow shape in the background here, the cone. And we're going to go to path and linked offset. And we'll make this, we'll just make this green and then grab this little node up here and scale this out to about here. Right about there. That should be about that thick, is pretty good. And then we'll go to path, object to path. And then we'll go back to our arrow. Let's raise this to the top and drop the opacity on this. And then we'll right click it. Actually, no, first we have to go to this oval. Let's click on this oval segment right here and ungroup it. Once you have that selected, come up here to the ungroup selected objects. And then we can click on this green object, right click it, duplicate, hold shift and click on this dark pink section right here and go to path, difference. And then we'll click on this green piece, right click it, duplicate it again, hold shift, click on that white stripe right there, path, difference. And then finally we could take this last green object and hold shift and click on the main pink segment right there and go to path, difference. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a little bit of dripping ice cream right here. And we're going to do that by first creating an oval. So let's come over to the circles and ellipses tool. And let's click and drag and make an oval kind of like that. And then we'll go to path, object to path, edit paths by nodes, click on that tool, and we'll click and drag over these center nodes right here. Hold control on the keyboard and click and drag them down about this much, right about there. We can go back to our arrow and then we can right click this and go to duplicate. We could turn this blue and we're going to inset this a few times. We'll do that by pressing Control and 9. So I'm going to hit Control and 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe one more time, 5. So I insetted that 5 times. Now I'm going to right click this and duplicate that and turn that red and hold Control on the keyboard and click and drag this bottom left arrow up to about there. And then I'll come up here while still holding Control and take this top right arrow and scale that out to about there and hold shift and click on the blue object beneath it. And then we can go to path, difference. So what I'll do now is I'll click and drag over both of these and I'll put this right about here because this is going to be the little drip right here. I'm going to hold Control and scale this down a little bit. It doesn't need to be quite that big. So I'll put that right there and we can bring the opacity on that all the way up. And then we can click off of it to deselect everything. And let's click on just this green, let's click on this blue object first. And let's make that white. And then let's click on this green object and press F7 to get our dropper tool and make that the same shade of pink that is there in the center. And then we can go back to our arrow and we can click and drag over both of those. Right click, duplicate, and put this one over here. And I'm going to hold Control and scale this down a little bit. I'm going to make this one just a little smaller than the original one. I'll put that right there. Click off of the graphic to deselect it. And then I'll click on just this drop right here, this pink object, and press F7 to get the dropper tool and make it the same shade of pink that is right there. So what I'll do next is I'll go back to the arrow and click on this pink object right here. And let's go to Path and Linked Offset. And we'll make that green for now. And let's grab this node and just scale this up about that much. And then we can go to Path, Object to Path. And then we can press F7 on the keyboard to get our dropper tool. And we can make this the same shade that this dark pink border is right here. So go ahead and click on that to give that the same shade. And then we'll go back to the arrow. And we'll do the same thing over here. We'll click on this. We'll go to Path, Linked Offset. Make it green. And then grab that little node up there and scale that out about that much. Let's go to Path, Object to Path. Go back to our dropper tool. Go press F7 to get the dropper tool, and we can just click on that dark pink shade to make it that shade right there. And then we can go back to our arrow, and let's one final step is we have to click on this pink object right here, and let's right-click that and go to Duplicate, and let's hold Shift on the keyboard and click on this dark pink border right there. And with them both selected, go to Path, Difference, and we'll do the same thing to this one right here. We'll click on this pink object, right click, duplicate, hold Shift on the keyboard, and you might have to zoom in to do this. You could press plus on the keyboard to zoom in, or you could just hold Control and use the mouse wheel. With that selected, hold Shift and click on that dark pink border right there. Go to Path, Difference. Then we could press 1 on the keyboard to zoom out. And I'm actually going to hold Control and roll down on the mouse wheel to zoom out a little bit. One last step, I'm going to click and drag over this whole thing. I'm going to group it together and click it a second time to get the rotation handles. And I'm going to hold Control and grab this side arrow right here and just scale that up about once, maybe like that, just to give it a little bit of shape there. So that is it for the tutorial. That's how you can create a cartoon style ice cream cone using Inkscape. So if you have any questions, just let me know. And as always, thank you for watching.